Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for being here with us again today. Hi, and welcome. Thank you for being here with us today. Today we are talking with Mercredan, consciousness that is channeled by the very gifted trance medium Francis Evans. And Francis is in the background at the moment, getting himself into a trance-like state to bring Mercredan in and speak with us today. And today we are talking about the new human species, or what we also call the new children. We're going to ask him questions like how are they different from us, what their role is in navigating us towards the new earth, and ultimately, do we need to wait until they take up roles of power or positions of influence before we can see any real change in the world? So without further ado, if you like this episode, please do give us the thumbs up and subscribe to stay in touch with what we're doing in the future. Now I'll cross over to Francis, who will be bringing Mercredan through for us in a minute. Over to you, Francis.
Welcome. And once again, it is my privilege and pleasure to come and spend these few moments of your time. As we say over and over, the primary principle is everything is unified, everything is one. And that, shall we say, is the great field of influence in which everything else is nested, down through the forming of each influential field, that is the cosmic field, the galactic fields, multiples of those, the solar field within your realm, the international field, the planetary field, the national, and so on, the field of the species. So shall we begin?
Thank you for that lovely introduction. So you've talked to us before about the new human species. You've told us that they started to come through in what you had referred to previously as halflings in the year or around the year 2000, and then as, I guess, full new children around the year 2012 onwards. Is this correct?
Let us say this. In the first years surrounding the year of 2000, because that is a primary motivation, a primary marker in the great cycles of events. So shall we say then, was the birth of, or rather shall we say the beginning of the eggs of the dragons. It is said then it takes 12 years for the egg to hatch. And then you have the beginnings of the dragon culture. And after another 12 years, the dragons reach maturity. As you will see, this is shown in all around you in your television programs, your series, your movies, and everything else. The coming of the dragon people. And it is these that we have referred to as the new species. And shall we say then, at 24 years old, they have reached the beginnings of maturity and beginning to influence within their own species and so forth. Is that enough of an introduction?
It is, thank you. So this year is 2024, so this is when they are beginning to come to maturity. So we are starting to see the beginnings.
And taking roles. You are starting to see the, shall we say, the phasing out of the old and the beginnings of the new framework.
Thank you. So one of the questions that we have that touches on that is, what is their role in navigating us towards the new earth? And do we need to wait until the majority of the powerful positions are taken up by these new children before we see any real change?
Not at all. As you had an earlier question, which is, what is their difference? Shall we say they are neurologically wired in a different schema, as it were. So they have an internal capability, much as what you are framing up with your artificial intelligence. In other words, they communicate amongst themselves in ways that are well outside of the old species. It was a possibility, of course, but not one that was activated. Now, shall we say, these new children are speaking a different language. It is one that understands, shall we call it, the principles of unity and unification as a unit. So they are influencing and taking roles in the formation of the new earth, the new world as it becomes. So as you can see, as the old world is replaced, and so much of the old ways of considering and thinking and so forth are being replaced by a new order of intelligence. So shall we say then, you are not having to wait one bit longer. As I have said, the year of 2024 was the end. And you will see the end as it plays out in historic terms. There is much going on, both on the surface, in the obvious, and underneath, in the, shall we say, the educational framework. In other words, the new species are educating themselves.
So when you talk about how they, the new children, have the ability to communicate amongst themselves, is that like a psychic intuition, or are they literally having conversations?
Shall we say, I talked in my introduction about the fields of influence. These, shall we say, are connections within the fields. So are they talking amongst themselves in a field of operation? That is, ideas and thoughts are being worked out inside of the field as a unification. In other words, much like the population of a bee colony. Everyone knows their what is necessary to keep alive the whole. And as the old tries to, shall we say, take all the energy out of the whole to reward the few, all of that dissipates and comes to nothing, because it cannot operate in such a fashion. If the bee colony were to operate like that, it would die. And so it is. You understand, it is not as if someone is killing the old from outside. It is killing itself from the inside. And that is obvious to anyone who looks at it, as if you can survive free of the whole. And so you have had, shall we say, all sorts of what are called events, whether they are earthquakes or volcanoes or hurricanes or tornadoes or whatever it is, the flooding and so forth. All of it comes from the consciousness within that framework of needing to learn the lesson of survival as a unit. And so the new species has woken up another question.
So in terms of, you talked about how they're different to us neurologically, are they also genetically different to us? And is there any science that's showing anything physiologically different beyond the neurology?
All sorts of challenges have been placed upon this group as if there is something wrong with them because they do not function in the same fashion. Let us become clear. The physical realm is determined by the other realms, the emotional realm, and that includes the psychic interconnections and the mental realm of functional imagination. And so it is that it is within the neurological pathways and connections that these new children function. One in the old framework tries to analyze everything by definition. The important question here is definition creates ideas. The more you look, the more you will find. The more you look at what you found, the more you will find. And the more you lose the whole connection to the totality of the interconnections, the interactions, and the interrelationship of everything else. You understand? So one looks for changes in, shall we say, the coding threads that produce different species. And because you are looking for some evidence in your own realm, that is, in the physical realm, you look for physical evidence and miss the evidence of your own eyes. These are functionally different children. And to try to track shall we say, the neurological connections within the brain is madness. Do you understand? They are connecting in different ways, activating different qualities, and so on. The very functional areas that were, shall we say, not activated, are becoming more and more functional.
Thank you. So I have a new child who was born in 2012, coincidentally, or not so coincidentally, the year of the dragon. And his imagination is phenomenal. So
Of
this is what,
course, but one expects it to be his imagine. It is their imagination. You understand? When you put together millions of thoughts, I want to say this, for all of eternity, there have been these fields of influence. The imagination is tapping in. Occasionally, there have been great souls capable of tapping into the imagination of the whole. But it was rare in those times. It was rare for anyone to step outside of their limitations of viewpoint that were conditioned in. But your new children do not have the same limitations. They can find out the truth about anything, or the lies about anything. And as I have said before, they are capable of seeing through the lies. Why? Because they are a whole. They are not trying to see from one perspective. They are tapping into the whole. Now, that does not mean that some of them will turn away. Some of them will be fall into the conditioning and try to stop their connections. But it becomes more and more difficult. And as the conditioning around them changes, then more and more will wake up. So shall we say the beginnings were slow, but the snowballing effect is taking great strides. There are those then who are standing out. They are within the calling of that group. They are taking their roles seriously. They are becoming voices for reason, voices for the planetary guardian, because that is the field of operation that they are capable of infiltrating.
thank you. Thank you. Sorry, my screen just blacked out for the last few minutes, so I didn't hear all of that, but I'm hoping that it was captured in the conversation at the YouTube end, which I assume it has. So apologies for not being able to have a follow-up question along those lines. So my next question is around parenting the new children. Not sure if you've touched on this already, because you usually know where I'm leading. So I'd like to know what you say to those parents who are confused and frustrated when the old system is not ready or capable to support these children.
The great difficulty for the old and the new is like always. The new is outpacing the old. Remember when you used to have the things called it's digital technology. Now it is something even faster and more able. The old systems are being held on to, shall we say, in historic form. That is, these are designed for the museum, not to forget where one has come from. So your modes, shall we say, of transport are changing. More and more you are seeing that it is so much difficulty in, shall we say, taking your car into the city to try to find somewhere to park it and so on, and the cost and everything. And the young simply are using electric scooters. What a difference. They are there before you are. They are already at their desks. They are already producing. All of that is going to shift humanity. So the parents must try to support as best they might, but to remember what does the queen do with her dragon? She puts it in charge. She knows she cannot afford, nor can she win in the war with the dragon, but to make it your friend. That is not your servant, but your friend. So you have to see that the parent has to provide, shall we say, the framework, the home, the support for the emotional body of the new species, because they too are adapting to the physical world. When they become parents, they will have adapted. They will be able to communicate with their children within the new field of influence. So it is as they take on maturity, as they begin to refine the world around them, so it will show signs. And I want to say the first of the signs that comes into being with the new species and their children, is time will slow down. Time, as you understand it, towards the end has been spinning at a rate that is so abnormally fast. In the new realm, time will be of little consequence, and therefore it will not, shall we say, rule the physical world. So shall we then say some things will change radically? That is, time of no consequence, money of no consequence, and organization and shall we say controls and so forth of no consequence. Why is that? because, shall we say, the neurological operation of a whole is instant.
Thank you.
I have said before, the old wiring might have updates, but this is a new operating system. And the old cannot nor will be able to understand the new realm. So it is important for the parents to adapt, because as it comes into being, they will be called upon to fit in as best they might. Shall we end with, there is a new world coming, and it is not one that you can hope to interpret or to truly understand, but it will have benefits for all.
Thank you. Before we finish up today, I wanted to gain your point of view about any future subjects that you think we could benefit from. Is there anything that you would like to talk about with us in the future?
I want to say this. There are many topics, but one has to choose carefully because each one treads on someone's toes. Excuse the body. Sometimes there are things to take notice of. I have always said whatever comes up is essential in the moment. So shall we say there is, one has to take care within the environment that one does not, shall we say, overly influence. So in this sense, I think it is better that the questions arise from the asking rather than from the answering.
Interesting. Thank you for that advice. Very good. Is there anything else you'd like to add today?
Enough for today.
Thank you.
Then once again, thank you for your time, for all of the listeners who take note of what is said and take it into their understanding and apply what they can. Thank you and good morning, afternoon or evening.
Thank you. And thanks for everybody that's taken the time to watch this today. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, please give us a thumbs up and remember to subscribe if you haven't already so that you can find us easily again and see what else we've got in store for you later on. So thanks so much for being here, and Delane will be back on Friday morning New Zealand time, which is in 3 days, same time. She's going to be talking to Mercredan where she left off last week, which was around near-death experiences and life beyond the veil, incarnation, etc. So I hope you enjoy that conversation. In the meantime, thanks so much for being here with us, and bye for now.